Disclaimer: this story contains
Look,
mature
it's right
themes
here.
intended
That
for
doesn't
adult
prove
viewers.
anything.
Hey, let's
Viewer
just talk
discretion
about
is
this.
advised.
Talk?
I didn't mean to hear it. The couch was still new enough to smell like fresh leather, still stiff in the corners where we hadn't yet softened it with time. We bought it together 6 months ago, laughing in the showroom, arguing over color swatches, promising it would be where we'd grow old side by side. That couch was supposed to hold movie nights, lazy Sundays, maybe even apologies after stupid fights. Instead, it held the moment my marriage cracked open. I was in the hallway when I heard her voice, soft, almost fragile. Not angry. Not shouting. Just honest. I feel empty with him. She wasn't talking to me. She was sitting on our couch, knees tucked under her, speaking to another man like he was the only person in the room who understood her. I could hear the low hum of his reply, steady and patient. Too patient. The kind of tone that builds quiet intimacy over time. They weren't reckless. They weren't loud. That's what made it worse. We were all adults. Late 20s. Long past the stage of dramatic jealousy and teenage mistakes. We were couples who hosted dinner parties, split mortgage payments, shared passwords. At least, that's what I thought. When I finally stepped into the room, she didn't look guilty. She looked distant. Like she had already crossed a bridge I didn't even know existed. But here's the part no one expects. I didn't confront him first. I told his wife. I drove across town with my heart pounding in my throat, rehearsing words that sounded weak the second they left my mouth. I expected tears. Shock. Rage. Something explosive. She just listened. Her face didn't fall apart. It sharpened. And then she stood up slowly, walked toward me, and said something that changed the direction of everything. You deserve to feel chosen too. There was something in her eyes, not revenge, not even anger. Something deeper. A quiet certainty. Like she'd been waiting for this moment longer than I had. That was the second the air shifted. Because what happened next wasn't about betrayal. It was about awakening. And as she reached for my hand, I realized this story wasn't going where I thought it would. She didn't let go of my hand right away. Her fingers were warm, steady, not trembling like mine. I noticed the small details I never would have before, the faint vanilla scent of her perfume, the way her nails were short and unpolished, practical. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't impulsive. That's what made it feel real. Her name was Marissa. We'd spent holidays together. Double dates. Shared wine bottles at that same couch my wife now sat on with her husband. We'd laughed about work stress, about adulting, about how marriage wasn't always fireworks but was supposed to feel safe. Safe. That word felt hollow now. I've known something was off, Marissa said quietly, her thumb brushing over my knuckles absent-mindedly. It wasn't flirtation. Not exactly. It was grounding. He's been distant for months. Late nights. New passwords. You start to question yourself after a while. I swallowed. I understood that feeling too well. When she said she felt empty, my voice cracked, and I hated that it did. I didn't even recognize the woman saying it. Marissa stepped closer, not invading, just closing the emotional distance between us. Sometimes people don't say what they need until they've already drifted. The air felt heavier. Not charged in a reckless way, more like the quiet before a storm you know is coming but can't see yet. We sat down across from each other at her kitchen table. The overhead light cast soft shadows across her face. She listened the way my wife used to listen, fully, without distraction. When I spoke, she held eye contact. When I paused, she didn't rush to fill the silence. It had been a long time since I felt that seen. I don't want revenge, I admitted. I just don't want to feel invisible. Her lips pressed together thoughtfully. Being chosen, she said slowly, isn't about grand gestures. It's about someone looking at you like you matter every day. There it was again, that shift. Not anger. Not chaos. Connection. Our knees brushed under the table by accident. Neither of us moved immediately. The contact was small, barely there, but it sent a quiet awareness through the room. A reminder that we were two adults sitting close, hurting in similar ways, searching for something steady. She exhaled slowly, eyes flicking down and then back up to mine. Tell me something, she said, her voice softer now. When was the last time you felt truly wanted? The question hung between us. And I realized answering it might change everything. I didn't answer her question right away. Because the truth was layered. There was the surface answer, the safe one. Before work got busy. Before stress. Before routine. But the deeper answer. I couldn't remember the last time my wife looked at me like she couldn't wait to be close to me. Not just physically, emotionally. Intimately. Like I was her first choice, not her fallback. I think, I said slowly, I got used to being the dependable one. The stable one. Somewhere along the way, stable turned into invisible. Marissa's expression softened in a way that felt dangerously understanding. That's what happens when you're the good partner, she replied. You show up. You stay steady. And people assume you'll always be there, no matter how little they pour back into you. Her words weren't flirtation. They were validation. And that might have been more intoxicating. The central conflict wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was realization. Two marriages that looked solid on the outside had quietly eroded from within. My wife had sought emotional intensity elsewhere. Marissa's husband had leaned into that space eagerly. Maybe they told themselves it was harmless. Maybe it started with venting. Shared frustrations. Inside jokes. We'd all been friends first. That history complicated everything. I remembered the night the four of us first met, a rooftop birthday party, too much wine, easy laughter. My wife had grabbed my hand back then without hesitation. Marissa had teased her husband about flirting too much. It felt light. Harmless. Now every memory felt rewritten. Do you ever wonder, Marissa asked carefully, if we ignored signs because we didn't want to disrupt the comfort? I nodded. Comfort is seductive. Predictable date nights. Shared streaming accounts. Knowing someone's coffee order without asking. But comfort without connection. It dries out slowly until one day you realize you're thirsty. Our chairs were closer now. I wasn't sure when that happened. Her knee rested lightly against mine this time, and neither of us pretended it was accidental. The contact wasn't bold, it was deliberate in its stillness. A quiet acknowledgement that something was shifting. I don't want to be anyone's reaction, she said. I don't want this to be revenge. Me neither. But the tension between us was no longer just emotional solidarity. It was awareness. The kind that builds when two people feel seen in ways they've been missing for months. Her hand moved slightly on the table, palm open. Not reaching. Just there. An invitation without words. Outside, her phone buzzed on the counter. Both of us glanced toward it. We didn't need to check to know who it might be. The air felt thinner. Because answering that call would mean stepping back into the roles we'd been quietly questioning. And neither of us moved. The phone kept buzzing. Neither of us reached for it. The sound felt distant, like it belonged to another version of our lives, the version where we were still pretending everything was fine. Where we showed up to dinners smiling. Where we posted anniversary photos with captions about gratitude and partnership. Marissa slowly stood, not breaking eye contact. The overhead light caught the tension in her expression, not recklessness, not revenge. Decision. If I answer that, she said quietly, I go back to explaining away things that don't make sense. Her voice wasn't angry. It was tired. I stood too, almost instinctively. We were close now, closer than we had ever been at any of those casual double dates. Close enough to feel each other's breath in the space between us. Close enough that stepping back would feel intentional. This wasn't supposed to happen, I said. I know. And that was the truth. No one planned this. There were no secret messages between us. No late-night confessions before tonight. Just two people who were suddenly fully aware of what they hadn't been receiving, and what was quietly present in the room now. Her fingers brushed my wrist this time, light, testing, deliberate. The contact sent a clear signal neither of us could pretend not to understand. Attraction doesn't always explode. Sometimes it builds slowly under shared pain, under eye contact that lingers a second too long, under conversations that go deeper than they should. I've felt invisible for months, she admitted. Not unwanted exactly. Just unseen. The word hit hard. Unseen. Because that's what this was about. Not just betrayal. Not even physical closeness. It was about being chosen with certainty. About someone leaning toward you instead of away. My hand moved to her waist, slowly enough that she could step back if she wanted to. She didn't. Her hands rested against my chest, steady, feeling the rhythm there. My heartbeat wasn't calm anymore. The kitchen felt smaller. Warmer. The air thick with everything unspoken. Are we crossing a line, I asked quietly, or are we just finally admitting one was already crossed? Her lips parted slightly, not in shock, but in thought. She didn't answer right away. She didn't have to. The phone buzzed again. This time louder. More insistent. Her hands tightened just slightly against me, and for a split second I felt her hesitate, not pulling away, but bracing. Because the next choice we made wouldn't be accidental. It would be intentional. And she was just beginning to lean closer when, her lips were inches from mine when the front door unlocked. The sound was sharp. Metallic. Final. We both froze. The phone on the counter stopped buzzing at the exact same second the door opened. Heavy footsteps crossed the entryway tile. A familiar cough. The rustle of keys being dropped into a bowl. Her husband. The second twist didn't arrive gently, it walked straight into the apartment. Marissa's hands slid from my chest, but she didn't step away immediately. Our faces were still too close. The air between us still electric. And for a split second, a reckless, breathless second, neither of us moved. He called her name casually from the hallway. Casually. Like nothing had shifted. Like he hadn't just been sitting on my couch hours earlier, listening to my wife confess feelings she never shared with me. Marissa finally stepped back, but her eyes didn't lose that intensity. If anything, it deepened. There was no panic in her expression. There was something steadier. Resolve. You can leave through the patio, she whispered quickly. Or you can stay. The choice hit harder than any touch had. Leave and return to silence. Pretend none of this happened. Go home to a wife who felt empty beside me. Or stay and force everything into the open. The hallway creaked again. Closer now. I glanced toward the back door. Then back at her. Before I could answer, her husband appeared in the kitchen doorway. His expression shifted the second he saw me. Surprise. Confusion. A flicker of calculation. What's going on? He asked. The room tightened. Marissa didn't flinch. She didn't rush to explain. She stepped forward, not toward him, but slightly toward me. That tiny movement said more than any words could. I know about you and her, she said calmly. Silence. His jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. And then came the third layer of complication, because instead of anger, instead of excuses, he exhaled slowly and said, "You weren't supposed to find out like this." Like this. As if there had been a plan. My stomach dropped. How long? I asked. He didn't answer me. He looked at Marissa. Weeks, her expression told me. Maybe longer. But then he said something none of us expected. She told me she's been talking to a lawyer. The words landed like a detonation. My wife. Not just emotional distance. Not just quiet confessions on our couch. An exit strategy. The air shifted again, this time heavier, sharper. The betrayal wasn't temporary. It wasn't a phase. It was movement. Marissa's composure cracked for the first time, just slightly. Not from heartbreak, but from clarity. They're already halfway out, she said quietly. And we're still pretending we're standing still. Her husband looked between us now, really looked. And I realized something dangerous. This wasn't just about two affairs. It was about two marriages collapsing at the same time. He took a step into the kitchen. Closer to us. Closer to the tension hanging thick in the air. If everything's already broken, he said carefully, maybe we should stop pretending it isn't. The implication lingered. Not defensive. Not apologetic. Suggestive. Marissa's hand found mine again, openly this time. And none of us pulled away. Because whatever happened next wasn't going to be hidden. It was going to be chosen. And her husband just closed the distance between us. The silence stretched so tight it felt like glass. Marissa didn't let go of my hand. Her husband didn't look away. And for the first time all night, no one was pretending. If everything's already broken, he repeated, quieter now, then let's stop acting like we owe the illusion anything. It wasn't a proposition. It was an admission. The truth was sitting in the room with us. Both marriages had been unraveling long before tonight. Emotional distance. Unspoken resentment. Loneliness disguised as stability. We weren't standing at the edge of betrayal, we were standing in the aftermath of months of it. I finally spoke, my voice steady in a way I didn't expect. My wife is talking to a lawyer, I said. Saying it out loud made it real. She checked out before I even knew we were in trouble. Marissa's fingers tightened around mine, not possessive, not desperate. Grounded. I deserve more than being someone's backup plan, she said. And so do you. Her husband watched her carefully. There was regret there. Maybe even guilt. But there was also something honest. I thought what I was missing was excitement, he admitted. But it wasn't that. It was connection. And I handled it the worst possible way. The tension in the room shifted. Not into chaos, into clarity. For months, the four of us had been orbiting dissatisfaction without naming it. My wife sought emotional intensity. He chased novelty. Marissa buried her loneliness. I buried mine under routine and responsibility. But here, in this kitchen, something different happened. We stopped hiding. Marissa slowly released my hand and stepped back, not away from me, but into herself. This isn't about swapping or revenge, she said firmly. It's about honesty. Her husband nodded once. And that's when the final twist landed. My phone buzzed. Not on the counter, in my pocket. A message preview lit up the screen. From my wife. We need to talk. I told him everything. Everything. I looked up slowly. Her husband's face changed. She told you, he asked. I nodded. The room filled with a new realization. they hadn't been as united in their secrecy as we thought. Lines had already started cracking on their side too. Marissa exhaled, almost relieved. So it's all out. Not explosive. Not dramatic. Just exposed. And in that exposure, something powerful settled over the room. We weren't four people tangled in scandal. We were four adults at a crossroads. Marissa met my eyes one last time, intensity still there, but clearer now. Whatever happens next, she said softly, let's choose it awake. The word hung there. Choose. My phone buzzed again. And this time, I knew answering it would change the ending of more than just my marriage. I stepped outside to take the call. Cold night air rushed into my lungs, grounding me in a way the kitchen couldn't. My wife's voice trembled on the other end, not defensive, not distant like before. Honest. She admitted everything. The emotional affair. The confusion. The consultation with a lawyer that she hadn't followed through on yet. I didn't know how to tell you I was unhappy, she said. I didn't know how to ask for more. For the first time in months, we weren't speaking around the truth. We were standing in it. I was unhappy too, I admitted. But I stayed quiet. I thought steady was enough. There were no accusations left. Just two adults acknowledging the gap they'd both helped create. We didn't promise to fix everything in one night. We didn't pretend trust would magically reappear. But we agreed to try, not out of habit, not out of fear, but because we both realized something tonight. Connection isn't found by escaping. It's rebuilt by choosing. When I walked back inside, Marissa and her husband were sitting at the table, talking quietly. Not arguing. Not cold. Just raw. I saw in their posture the same reckoning I had just experienced. She looked up at me, and there was understanding in her eyes, not longing, not unfinished tension. Respect. Are you going home? She asked softly. Yeah, I said. To actually talk. She nodded. Good. There was a brief moment where we stood facing each other, aware of what almost happened between us. A spark that could have become something reckless. But instead of regret, there was gratitude. Because what we gave each other tonight wasn't betrayal. It was clarity. Her husband stood and stepped closer to her, and this time she let him take her hand. Not automatically, intentionally. I realized that was the difference. Intimacy isn't just physical proximity. It's emotional presence. It's choosing to see the person in front of you fully, even when it's uncomfortable. As I drove home, the couch came back to my mind, the one we bought together. It wasn't a symbol of emptiness anymore. It was a reminder that comfort without communication fades, but honesty can rebuild what distance erodes. Later that night, my wife and I sat on that same couch. No phones. No distractions. Just us. Talking in ways we hadn't in years. Her hand found mine. And this time, it didn't feel routine. It felt chosen. Not because we were perfect. But because we were finally awake. And sometimes, the most romantic ending isn't finding someone new. It's finding each other again.